Hello students, my name is Prakhar, I am your JEE faculty and today we are gonna discuss the paper 2 of advanced. The paper 1 is already in our playlist, you can find it there, alright. So let's begin with paper 1, paper 2, okay, alright. So guys, in our first question, this question is basically from the chapter rotation motion, alright. And here the applications of the translation equilibrium and the rotational equilibrium is discussed, alright. So as you can see that there is a wall and along with this wall there is a rod, a string is connected there and a mass of alpha W weight is over here, alright. And also the maximum tension which this string can withstand is 2√2 omega is given, right. Now based on this information we have to discuss about the option A, B, C and D, alright. So our step number 1 is to draw a free body diagram, alright. Okay, so let's look at this drawing, okay. Now how to start with free body diagram? First of all we'll cover the gravities. So the weight of the rod, this W will act at its center of mass, the alpha W weight is acting in the vertical direction, this is the tension. This angle is not directly given in the question, but as we can see from the geometry that this length is L and this length is L. So this angle will come out to be 45 degree, alright. And at this point O, some reaction forces are also there. So Rx, I have assumed that it is acting towards right side, Ry in the upward direction, alright. Okay. Now let's start with writing the equations of equilibrium. So in the horizontal direction, if I'll write the equation, you can see from the free body diagram that this T cos 45 degree is balanced by the Rx component. So I can write down Rx equal to T cos 45, which is T by √2. In the vertical direction, Ry is in the upward direction and also T sin 45 degree is also in the upward direction, whereas W, alpha W, they are in the downward direction. Okay, so upward forces will balance the the downward forces, right. So in the vertical direction, I can write down the equation of Ry like this. Okay. Now the third equation will be of rotational equilibrium. So I have balanced the torque about point O. Now about point O you can see that Rx and Ry, they are passing through point O only. So their torque will become 0, right. Now the torque of W and alpha W, that will act in the clockwise direction, whereas the torque of T sin 45 degree will act in anti-clock direction and they will balance out each other, right. So that same equation I have written here. In the rotational equilibrium, this is the torque of the weights and this is the torque of tension balancing each other, right. Now if I solve this equation, I will get that this Ry is coming out to be W by 2, alright. Now let's move on to this option A. The option A says that what will happen to the vertical component of reaction forces. That means what will happen to Ry, whether Ry depends on the value of this alpha or not, right. So as you can see that we have calculated the value of Ry as W by 2, which clearly it does not depend on the value of alpha, right. So we can say that option A is one of the correct option, right. Now moving on to option B, the horizontal component of reaction force at O is equal to W for alpha equal to 0.5, right. So what question is asking us that if I'll put the value of alpha as 0.5, then what will happen to the value of Rx, right. So step number 1, for alpha equal to 1 by 2 value, we will put here and we'll get the value of tension, okay, from this equation, and then we will put this tension back to this equation to get the value of Rx, which will come out to be equal to W, right. So we can say that option B is also my correct option, right. Now moving on to option C, the tension in the rope is 2W for alpha equal to 0.5. This I have already calculated. If you'll go here, if you'll see for alpha equal to 0.5, the tension is coming out to be √2W. That means option C cannot be the correct answer, right. Now let's talk about the breaking strength of that rope. It is already given that in the string, the maximum tension it can withheld is 2√2W, right. So if this tension exceeds this value, then the rope will break, okay. So if I'll put the expression of T over here and if I'll solve for alpha, the alpha condition for alpha is that if alpha value is more than 1.5, then only the rope will break, okay. So if you see here, the rope breaks for alpha more than 1.5, then yes, A, B and D will be the correct answer for this question. So moving on to the next question, This question says that there is a source which is approaching towards a closed organ pipe, right? So this is a combination of two different concepts, one from the Doppler effect and one from the standing wave formation in the closed organ pipe, right? So now depending on the different values of the source frequencies and depending on the different values of the speed of that source, we have to judge whether the resonance between these two will happen or not, right? So as you can see from this drawing that this is our closed organ pipe and the source of some frequency, source frequency I am taking it as Fs, is approaching towards with some speed u, right? So by using the concept of Doppler effect, we can say that the apparent frequency can be given as f dash equal to fs v divided by v minus u, where this v is the speed of sound and this u is the speed of the source, all right? And we know that in the closed organ pipe, for resonance to achieve, the odd harmonics only we have to take. We cannot take the even harmonic, they doesn't exist in this scenario, right? Okay, so now what we have to do, we have to go option by option. For option A, if I'll take the value of source frequency is f naught and the speed of source as 0.8 v, if I'll calculate, I'll get the value 5 f naught, right? Now this 5 f naught, it matches with this fifth harmonic, okay? So I can say that yes, for 5 f naught the resonance will be achieved, right? Now similarly for option B, if I'll put the value of 2 f naught and 0.8 v, I'll get it as 10 f naught, which is obviously this 10 number is an even number, so this does not exist, so no resonance will be achieved in this scenario. For option C, again by putting these values, you can see that 2.5, obviously 2.5 is not an integer, so this is also rejected. And then finally for the option D, clearly we can see that 3 f naught is coming, which is the third harmonic, here we are getting it, so yes, this will be happening over here, okay? So if I'll check with the options, then I can say that yes, option A and option D, here option A and option D will be the correct answer key for this question. So students, in this particular question, we will discuss about the properties of prisms, alright. Okay, so this question is basically divided in two categories, case 1 and case 2. In the initial case, it is given that this has a uniform refractive index, that means N1 and N2, they both are equal to, the value is also given 1.5, they both have 1.5 values, right. And the angle I is set in such a way that a minimum deviation is occurring, right. So that would mean the refracted ray will be parallel to the base and there will be a symmetry on the left and right side, and angle I will be same as angle E in this scenario. That is our case number 1. In case number 2, what they are saying is that they have increased this value of N2 slightly by some amount delta N, right, and that delta N is a very small number, and consequently what will happen, the angle of emergence will also increase by a slight amount. Instead of I, it will become I plus delta E, right. Now based on these two cases, we have to discuss about the possibilities in options A, B, C, D, which one would be correct, alright. So let's start the solution with our case number 1. So in case number 1, it is already told that N1 and N2, they are equal. That means a symmetry will exist. This I is taken for minimum deviation. So the half angle 30 degree will be equal to this refractive index, and this refractive index also, angle I and angle E, they are gonna be equal, right. So what I'm going to do is, at the starting interface, I will apply Snell's law, right. So after applying the Snell's law, I can get the value of this angle of incidence, which will come out to be sin I equal to 3/4, and here only I will keep aside the value of cos I for later use, right. Now moving on to the second case, right. In second case, what has happened, the value of N1 we have kept same 1.5 only, but the value of N2 is increased slightly by some amount delta N. Consequently, what has happened, the value of angle of emergence has also increased by some small amount delta E, right. Now since this light does not know while entering that N2 is gonna get increased, so this light will go parallel to the base, and at this juncture no bending of the light will take place, it will strike directly here, and because of the geometry, this angle 30 degree is gonna remain same, right. Okay, so if I'll apply the Snell's law at the exit boundary, what I'm gonna get is that this equation. In this equation, I have to expand this sin A plus B identity, and then I have to apply the approximation that since delta E is a very small angle, so for that small angle cos delta E can be taken as 1 and sin delta E can be taken as delta E only, right? After solving, you will get a relation between delta E and delta N. Okay, now let's go to the options and check one by one. So option A says which value is greater, delta E is greater or delta N is greater, right? So clearly from this expression we can see that delta E is gonna be a lesser number compared to delta N. Okay, so option E cannot be correct. Let's talk about option B. Option B says delta E and delta N are proportional. Clearly we can see delta E and delta N, they are proportional. So yes, option B will be my correct answer, one of the correct answer, right? Now for option C and D, the question is asking to put the value of delta N as 2.8 into 10 power minus 3. After calculation, we will get the value of delta E as 2.117 10 power minus 3 radians. Okay, so this number, it falls in the range of 2.0 and 3.0 milliradians. So option C will be my correct. Option D obviously will be wrong answer. So B and C will be the correct answer key for this question. So now moving on to our next question, guys. Here you can see that this question belongs to the dimensional formula category, alright, and this is one of the easiest question that advanced has asked in this one. Okay, so here a formula is written, and if you guys have studied electromagnetic wave, then you must be knowing that this vector S represents the Poynting vector, right? So the unit of this Poynting vector, basically that is proportional to the power per unit area, that we can directly say, and the direct option is also available with us, that power upon area is the dimensionally equivalent quantity for this Poynting vector, right? And if I'll write down power as force into velocity in my next step, and if I'll write down area as the multiplication of two lengths, right? So here what you are gonna get is that this velocity divided by length, this will keep this length as it is, right? And this length divided by velocity will become time. Okay, so option B will also be my correct answer, right? And obviously we can see that option C and option A will not fit into this equation, right? So for this particular question, B and D will be the correct answers. So my dear students, moving on to our next question. Here this question is from the mass defect concept, alright. So what question is saying that we have an heavy nucleus N and it is breaking apart in two parts P and Q, right? And this P and Q, they will be produced with some kinetic energy along with them, right? So from where does that kinetic energy will come? That is basically some part of this capital N, some mass will get converted into those kinetic energy. So there is a quantity of mass defect which is given in this question, that delta, which is the mass defect, is the N minus P minus Q masses, alright. And now in question it is also given that the energy of this P and Q, this E represents basically kinetic energy, their velocity Vp and Vq are also given in the question. So what we need to do is we have to analyze all the four options and check that which one of them will be the correct one. Okay, so if I'll move on to the solution part, here I can say that this this N, which was initially at rest, it broke apart in two parts P and Q having their own kinetic energies. And from where does those kinetic energies coming? It is because of that some amount of N, which is delta. This delta is basically the mass defect over here. Okay, so this mass defect is getting converted into the energy, and that energy is basically the contribution from the kinetic energies of P and Q. Okay, so what can we apply? Because there are no external forces acting on the capital N, it is breaking apart in two particles. I can apply conservation of momentum here. Okay, so after applying, I will get a ratio of velocities of P and Q, that is mq by mp, right? So straight away if I look at the options, then you will see that yes, option C is matching, alright. Now moving on, if I'll apply the conservation of energy, very simple, I've already told you that the kinetic energies of P and Q, they are coming basically from because of this mass defect, right? So delta m into c square I have equated, and we know that if momentum is conserved, then kinetic energy is inversely proportional to mass. From here I can get the ratios of kinetic energies of P and Q, that is mq by mp, right? Now if I'll solve this equation number 1 and equation number 2, I can get the exact values of EP and EQ. I have calculated the value of EP over here. Why? Because in our options, the option B says EP is equal to MP by MP plus MQ. If you see here in the numerator it is MP, but after solving we are getting here as MQ, right? So that means option B is our wrong answer. Option A, that conservation of energy equation that I have already written. So yes, option A is matching, right? Now moving on to option D. Option D says that the magnitude of momentum for P and Q, we know that it is same, but it should be equal to this value where this mu stands for this expression, right? So let's move on to the solution part and check here that in the momentum equation we know that momentum is root 2 mk. Okay, so masses and kinetic energies I have placed. Since I have already calculated the expression for EP, I will put this expression here and I will see that this type of equation will come, and if I'll say that this bracket is basically mu, then the same equation can be written as C square root of 2 mu delta, which you can see that in this part option D is matching, and so option A, C and D will be the correct answer for this question. Hello students, now moving on to our next question. Here we can say that in question says that two coils are given to us. In these two coils, current I1 and I2 are flowing, I1 in the anti-clock direction, I2 in the clockwise direction, okay? And we have to think about the magnetic field which is producing because of both the coils, okay? So here one more information which is given in the question is that this I2 is slightly greater than the value of 2I1, okay? And now we'll go option by option. So option A says that the magnetic field at any x comma y point is perpendicular to the xy plane at any point in the plane, right? So if I'll select any point, guys, let's say this is the point x comma y coordinate, okay? So if I'll calculate the magnetic field, just I have to make a qualitative analysis over here. So the contribution of I1 will go inside, the contribution of I2 will come outside. So whatever the magnetic field over here is, either it is inside the plane or it is outside the plane. That means it is perpendicular to the screen, right? So here I can say that yes, option A is my correct answer. And now moving on to option B. This option B says that the total magnetic field at this point is dependent on this radial distance from the center R, and as we know that because of the symmetry, if I'll select any point which is at a distance of small r from the center, then all these points on this particular circle will be due to symmetry, the value of magnetic field and the direction will remain same, right? So I can clearly say that magnetic field existing at this point will be a function of this radial distance r. So option B will also come out to be correct, okay? Now in option C says that for the points which are inside the smaller loop, for small r less than capital R, so for these points, is there any chance that the value could be non-zero or zero? That I need to discuss, okay? So I'll move on to the next slide, and I want to check what will happen at the center point, okay? Let's check this point clearly. Okay, so the magnetic field due to this current I1 is gonna be out of the page, and I'm applying the formula over here, and similarly the magnetic field due to the outer loop will be into the page, and I have applied the formula over here, right? Now both the magnetic field will give their contribution. So now I am calculating the total magnetic field. It is given in the question that the value of this I2 is basically, okay, so yeah, here it is written that this value of I2 is greater than 2I1. So if value of I2 is greater than 2I1, then definitely I can say that B2 will be dominating magnetic field, right? So the total magnetic field will have the direction same as the direction of B2, which is into the paper, right? Okay, so this magnetic field, the net magnetic field at the center point O is basically into the page, that we know for sure, right? Now if I select a point which is near to this loop I1, and if I'll see the direction, if I'll put my thumb in the direction of current and if I'll curl my fingers are coming out. That means the magnetic field is out of the page, near to the a point very near to this coil I1, right? So here one point the magnetic field is into the page, and here the magnetic field is out of the page. Then definitely between these 2 points there must exist one neutral point where the magnetic field has to be 0, right? So clearly I can say that there exists this particular locus of the point, collection of points where the magnetic field will become 0. So if I'll check option B, option C says that all the values are non-zero magnetic field, right, which is not correct. Okay, we will find few points where the magnetic field will be 0. Okay, now moving on to option D. Option D says that what will happen to the magnetic field for the points which are outside the 2 loops, right? So for the points which are beyond the outer loop, okay, sorry, I think, yeah, it says that between the loop, all right. Okay, so between the loop, if I'll select any point, then I'm concerned with the range which is between capital R and 2R. Okay, so guys, if I'll select any point over here, I can see that the magnetic field due to this current I1 is going into the page, and the magnetic field due to I2 is also going into the page, right? So here I cannot get any null point, and obviously these two magnetic fields, they will add up. The total magnetic field will be ultimately into the screen. If I look at the option D over here says that magnetic field is pointing normally outward, which is false. Actually it is pointing normally inward the screen. So option D is wrong. For this question, A and B will be the correct answers. So moving on to our next question, guys. Here one test tube, inverted test tube with air trapped is given inside a bottle, and we have to do some calculation, and we have to check whether if I'll squeeze this bottle, if I'll increase the pressure inside the bottle, then this tube is gonna just sink, and in that scenario how much will be what will be the pressure and volume changes in the trapped air that I need to find. Okay. So what are the conditions given in the question? First of all, some information regarding this tube is given in the first few lines of this question, and that will be helpful to figure out how much is the buoyant force because of that tube only. Okay. So if I look at the solution, I can say that the buoyant force due to that glass tube only can be given as rho into V into G, right, where rho is the density of the water, volume of the glass tube can be written as mass by density of the tube material, and that buoyant force will come out to be 2G, right. So now initially actually what is happening before squeezing this ball, in my starting case, this tube is actually touching the cork. Because of that, some normal reaction is also acting on this one. Okay, so some buoyant force because of the tube is there, some buoyant force because of the trapped air is there, weight is there, and normal reaction is there. But question is asking for the case number 2, in which we have squeezed the ball, and we have squeezed this bottle, and we have increased the pressure. Because of that, the tube has lost the contact from the cork. Okay, so this normal reaction will vanish, and now only the buoyant force because of the tube and the buoyant force because of the trapped air will come into picture. Okay, so if I'll write down the force balancing equation, I can say that this B1 and B2 together, they will balance the weight of the tube over here. So B1 represents the buoyant force because of the tube only, which we have already calculated, and the buoyant force because of the trapped air can be written as rho into V into G. I have assumed that in my case number 2, the volume is V dash and weight is given in the question. So I have calculated the final volume V dash. I have not changed any units, I have kept in the CJ system only. So V dash will come out to be 3 cc. Okay, so initially the volume of the trapped air was given 3.3 cc, now it has become 3 cc. So there is a difference of 0.3 cc. Alright, and if I look at the question is asking that what is the difference in the volume which is generated in the trapped air. So that delta V I want to report as x into cc. So the value of x we have calculated that x is equal to 0.3 and the units are in cc, right. So 0.3 will be the answer for question number 7, and for question number 8 I want to check I want to calculate here that what is the value of the delta P for which this just sinking condition will occur. Okay, so in order to see that, what I have done, it is given the question that the trapped air will not have any change in its temperature. That means it is going to be an isothermal process. So P1 V1 equal to P2 V2 I have applied, P0 V0 are my initial pressure, okay, and P0 plus delta P is my final pressure. V dash is the final volume of the trapped air. After putting all these values, I will get the delta P is equal to 0.1 into P0. P0 is the atmospheric pressure only. The value of P0 I'll have taken 10 power 5 Pascal. After placing it, rearranging into this manner, this will give me 10, and this is the 10 which I need to find, which is the value of capital Y. So in my question number 8, for the value of Y, the value of Y will come out to be 10. So 0.3 and 10 will be the correct answer for this question. So friends, in this next question, this is an application of a sudden impulse, a sudden jerk in a string, and because of that, how to write the conservation of momentum equation, that we have, that analysis we have to do in this particular question. Okay, so this question is saying that from a ceiling a pendulum is hanging, but it is not hanged at its full stretched. Okay, because the length of the string is large compared to the distance between the height, the distance between the ceiling and the floor. All right, so the length is given 1 meter and the distance between the floor and the ceiling is 0.9 meters. So obviously in the starting, some of the string will be loose and it will be on the ground only, right? So now a sudden impulse of this 0.2 kg meter per second is important. Because of that, the pendulum, the string of the pendulum will try to stretch it out. Okay, the best representation that we can draw, you can see in this slide, that initially some of the string is loose, staying on the ground only, okay, and then in some intermediary step, when we have applied and momentum over here, what has happened, the full stretch in string has occurred up till this point. Okay, this is the intermediate stretch. Now further stretching cannot happen, so immediately what will happen is that the momentum component which is along the string, it will vanish. Okay, because the further stretching of this string cannot happen in this direction. So whatever the velocity, that velocity will be perpendicular to the string only. Okay, so in this one, what I have done, 0.9 is the height given to us, 1 is the length of the string given to us. All right, this is the initial momentum 0.2 that we have applied. Okay, the value of P I is 0.2 given to us. All right, so this is the angle theta, sin theta we can very much calculate from the geometry here. Okay, so the concept here is that in my final state there will be no velocity, hence no momentum along the string. Whatever the momentum, whatever the velocity, it will be only in the perpendicular direction. So in that perpendicular direction, I can apply the conservation of momentum equation. So the component of this momentum along this direction, Pi sin theta, should be equal to that Pf. From there I have calculated the value of Pf, which has come out to be 0.18, right? Now in the next part, I want to calculate the angular momentum about this hanging point O. Okay, so very simple formula I have applied here. Angular momentum is equal to momentum multiplied by the perpendicular distance, right? In this case, the perpendicular distance, R perpendicular, is equal to 1 meter, which is nothing but the length of this string. So 0.18 into 1, that will give you the angular momentum. And also, if I want to calculate the final kinetic energy, then I can apply the formula of kinetic energy as P square by 2m. I have calculated the final momentum, mass is given in the question. After doing the calculation, you will get it as 0.162, right? So in the question, if you will see, two values they have asked. What are those two values? First, they have asked that what is the angular momentum in this particular unit. So that angular momentum we have calculated as 0.18. We have to report our answer in 2 decimal places only. And in question number 10th, we need to find out that just after the lift off, what is the kinetic energy, k joule, right? So that kinetic energy also we have to report in 2 decimal places. So these will be my answer to this question. So students, moving on to our next question. This question is from the chapter alternating current. Okay, let's go with this question. This question says that we have a metal filament lamp which is connected with a capacitor. Okay, and the alternating source has a RMS voltage of 200 volt with a frequency of 50 hertz. All right, it is also written that this lamp, which can act as a resistor, it is consuming a power of 500 watt, and the voltage drop is across the lamp is 100 volt. all these 200 volt and 100 volt values are given in the RMS values only. Okay, assume that there is no inductor. Okay, so in this circuit we have to assume that no inductor is present, and then we have to calculate what is the value of this capacitance C and how much is the value of phi over here. Okay, all right. Now let's moving on to the solution part. Here you can see we can draw a basic circuit diagram in which I have shown a lamp in the form of resistor, capacitor, battery, and it is given that 100 volt we are getting across this lamp. Okay. So if I focus only on this resistor part, I can write down the equation of power consumed, that power is equal to V square by R. Please note that all these values are in the RMS terms only. After putting the value, I can get the value of resistance as 20 ohm. Okay. So now I can also calculate the RMS current which is flowing across the resistor by applying VR by R, and here I will get the RMS value as 5 ampere, right. Now if you will see the phasor diagram for this circuit, we have VR, we have VC, we have no inducting voltage, right. So this is the value of phi that I need to calculate, and this is the resultant source of 200 volt over here, right. I can apply Pythagoras theorem here to calculate this value of VC. After putting the values, the VC will come out to be 100 root 3, right. Now it is very simple to calculate the phase phi here. So 10 phi is nothing but VC by VR. We know that VC is 100 root 3, and we know that VR is equal to 100 volt, which is already given in the question. After putting the values, we will get the value of phi as 60 degree. Okay. And now moving on to the next part of the question where we need to find the value of capacitance. Here I will only focus on this capacitor part, right. Here also I can write down that I RMS is equal to VC by XC. What is XC? That is the capacitive reactance which is given by 1 by omega C, right. Now I know the value of I RMS, that is equal to 5 ampere. VC I know, we have already calculated 100 root 3. And omega is given in the question. How to find omega? Omega you can write down as 2 pi f. F is 50, so this will be your value of omega, right. After putting all the values, you will get capacitance as 100 microfarad. So if you come to the question part, and what question is asking you? The question is asking the value of capacitance in microfarad. So the value of C will be equal to 100, and the phi they are asking in degree, and that answer was 60 degree. Okay, so 160 will be the answer for this question. Moving on to our next comprehension based question. All right, so this time Advanced has given a very big data and an hypothetical situation we have to consider while solving this question. Okay, so let's go deep in the question. What is given in the question is that we have a ring over here which is made up of a very special material, all right, and this material has a property that it has no resistance at all. Okay, now what are the effects if there is no resistance in this loop? What will happen that this closed wire loop will not allow any change in the flux occurring through it. Okay, and at a very large distance we have this magnetic dipole over here, right, and this magnetic dipole is producing a magnetic field. It is written as mu naught by 2 pi m by r cube. That is also given in our question. Okay, apart from that, another data is given that if two magnetic dipoles are there, then the interactive force between them can be written as k m1 m2 by r to the power 4. All right, so now based on this comprehension we have two questions. The first question is asking that what is the proportionality of the induced current in that special material loop that we need to find, and also we need to find the work done when we are bringing that another magnetic dipole near to that coil. Okay, so we'll go one by one, and first I'll discuss question 13 and then question 14 since both are connected. Okay, so in the question number 13 part, it is given that the magnetic field produced by this magnetic dipole is given as mu naught m by 2 pi r cube. So this at a distance r is the magnetic field due to this dipole. Okay, now at the center of this magnetic of this loop, because this loop is made up of a very special material, it will resist all the changes in such a way the value of current on this loop I will come in such a way that there will be no change of flux occurring through this loop. Alright, so what I can say is that the net change of flux across this loop is going to be 0. Alright, now there will be two contribution of fluxes. One contribution from this dipole will be magnetic field multiplied by the area of this loop, right, and another contribution will be the induced current and its own magnetic flux, right. So the induced current I have taken as I. Let's say the self-inductance of this small loop is capital L. Alright, now we just need to plug the values. I have written the magnetic field. This area of the loop will be pi a square L into I is the flux because of this induced current, right. Now if I'll just see the proportionality, this induced current I is proportional to m divided by r cube, and if I'll check my options, so m by r cube option A will match for question number 13, right. Now in question number 14 we need to calculate the work done. So before calculating the work done, we have to focus upon the expression of force which is given in this question. So we have two magnetic dipole formation happening over here. This is my first magnet and this is my second dipole. First dipole, second dipole, right. So the first dipole moment is small m. For the second one I have written m induced. Now what is this magnetic dipole moment induced value? That will be the current multiplied by the area of this coil. Okay, so how much is the current? We have already calculated in our previous step that it is proportional to m by r cube. So m induced will also be proportional to m by r cube term, right. Now we need to calculate the work done. So integration f dr we will apply here. The limits will go from infinity to r, right. Now this force contains two values for dipole moment, right. This m will stay as it is, m induced will go over here. So m into m will become m square and r power 4 multiplied by r3 will become r power 7, right. After integration, this r7 will become r power 6. I have removed all the constants which are appearing over here. So the work done will be proportional to m square by r to the power 6. If I'll check my options over here, then I can see that m square r power 6 option C is matching. So option A and option C will be the answer for this passage. Thank you. So students, moving on to our next question. This question is from the chapter thermodynamics. Okay, so what is given in the question is that we have a chamber fitted with a movable piston, and all the surfaces of this chamber as well as piston, they are not allowed to conduct the heat. All right, and what else is given? We have inserted small filament over here, and this will supply some type of heat energy to this one. All right, as a result, what will happen, whatever the energy is supplied, it will divide itself in two parts. Some part will be used in increasing the internal energy of this left chamber part, and the some part will be used as a work done, that is the movement of piston will take place, right. So it is given in the question that this piston is moved towards right side in such a way that initially when the volume is V naught, so now finally the volume on this right chamber, it has become V naught by 2, right. Okay, and also in the final stage, after the movement of the piston, the temperature has changed in both the chamber. It is TL and TR on the left and the right side, right. Now based on that information, and another hint is given to us that CV equal to 2R, that is the specific heat at constant volume given for this particular gas. Okay, so now based on this information, we have to answer these two questions. Basically what we need to find is the value of TR and the value of Q. Once we know the value of TR and the value of Q, we can solve these two questions, right. Okay, now let's go to the solution part. So here I have drawn this initial condition in which the piston has not moved as of now. The temperatures and volume are same, T naught V naught in both left and the right chamber, right. Now in the final condition, what has happened, the piston has moved. So the volume of this part of the gas has become V naught by 2, and obviously this part will become 3 V naught by 2. TL, TR are the final values of temperature. Okay, so first of all, it is given in the question that CV is equal to 2R. So we can apply the formula Cp minus CV equal to capital R to get the value of Cp as well as gamma Cp by Cv. So gamma will be 3 by 2, right. Now if I only focus in the right chamber, the gas inside this right chamber is totally surrounded by the surfaces in which the heat cannot conduct, right. So I can say that right chamber is basically will follow the adiabatic process. So I have applied the formula of adiabatic equation over here. Initially the temperatures are T0 and the volume is V0. Finally the temperature is Tr and finally the volume is V0 by 2. The value of gamma is given to us 3 by 2. After solving this, we can directly get the value of Tr. Tr will be equal to root 2 into T0. So in the first part of the question, when question is asking me the ratio of Tr and T0, I can clearly say that Tr by T0 will be equal to root 2. So option A will be the correct one for question number 15. Now moving on to the next part. It is also given that this piston is moving very slowly. That would mean that at every point of time the pressure on the left and right, they are equal, right? Okay, so what I have done here, in the right side chamber I have applied PV equal to nRT to get the pressure on the right side of the chamber. Okay, I know the volume is V0 by 2. I have already calculated the value of Tr. After placing the values, I will get the pressure on the right side of the chamber as this one. Okay. Now I am applying the pressure balancing equation. So PL is equal to PR. So what is PL? PL is the final pressure on the left side and PR is the final pressure on the right side. I am saying that they both are equal. Okay. So the pressure on the left side can be calculated by this equation. I have used the final volume as 3 V0 by 2. After placing the values of PR, I will get TL as 3 root 2 T0. Okay. So I will keep this value aside, right? Now moving on, I need to calculate the value of Q. So for that I have applied the first law of thermodynamics for the left chamber part. So whatever the heat Q we have supplied, that will increase the temperature on the left side and it will do some positive work on the right side. So Q equal to delta U plus W, that I have applied over here. So Q is equal to delta U is basically NCV delta T. Okay, CV we know is 2R, delta T, that is the temperature difference in the initial and the final state, right? Now here the work done. So work done, how I have calculated, we know that this is the adiabatic process is happening over here. So for this adiabatic process, I can write down W as negative of delta U for this chamber, but that will become as a positive work for this particular left chamber, right? So it can be written as NCV delta T for this temperature difference, this part of the left chamber. Okay. After placing the values, I will calculate the ratio of Q and RT0, that will come out to be this expression. And if I'll check with the options for question number 16, so option B will be the correct answer for this question. So option A and option B are the correct answer for this whole passage. Moving on to our next question, students. This is an application of a meter bridge. Okay, a little bit different, but the basic concepts are the same which we learn in the chapter electricity. Okay, so what is given in the question is that we have this meter bridge. So the total length of this particular wire is given to be 1 meter in the question. All right, and there is a set of batteries and resistors given over here. One thing important to know is that the galvanometer is showing a null point when this length is equal to 72 centimeter, right? So what we are going to do, my next step is to try to draw an equivalent circuit diagram for this one. Okay, so if we'll move to our next part, what I have done here, the same battery resistance R1 I have applied here, 25 ohm given in the question, and this is the galvanometer branch and no current is allowed through this branch. So whatever the current is flowing will flow in the outer branches of the circuit only. Okay, and what I've done here, one more thing is that this was the point where the null point is achieved. Okay, this is the length 72 centimeter, right? And the entire wire has a resistance of 50 ohm given in our question. So this section will have a resistance of 36 ohm and this section will have a resistance of 14 ohm. All right. So what is the direction of current? The direction of current I will be in the outer regions of this circuit only. Okay, so now I can apply the Kirchhoff loop for loop 1 here, for loop 2 here. As you can see that I have applied the equations over here, right? So for the loop 1 I'll get one equation, for loop 2 I'll get another equation. You can verify the simple application of Kirchhoff is there, nothing, no rocket science we are applying. Okay, so after solving these two we will get the value of R1 very comfortably as 3 ohm. Okay, so as you can see that here the value of R1 will come out to be 3. That will be the answer to this question. Moving on to our next question. Friends, this question is from the application of binary star system. Okay, so two stars are given to us and eventually we have to compare their time period to the time period of earth and sun system. Okay, so this is a very common type of a question that we generally do in various books and for the preparation of JEE Main as well. Okay, so here you can see that we have taken two stars, 6 ms and 3 ms. These are the masses of those stars, right? So what is the basic concept? The basic concept is that 6 ms and 3 ms, they will have a common center of mass, right? And they both, because of mutual gravitational attraction, will move in the circular orbit about their center of mass. So the 6 ms star will move in this manner, having a radius of r1, and this will move in this manner, having a radius of r2. Okay, so how to calculate this r1 and r2? Very simple concept. It is given in the question that the distance between both the stars is equal to 9r, and because these two r1 and r2, they are inversely proportional to the masses, so the ratio of r1 and r2 will come out to be equal to 1/2. Now solving these two equations, I will get the values of r1 and r2, right? Now we know that the motion, the circular motion is happening because of the gravitational attraction between them. Okay, so if I'll focus on this 6 ms, this is the direction of the gravitational force, and this one is moving in this circular orbit, so I can apply the equation of centripetal force over here. So the gravitational attraction is equal to centripetal force, right? After solving, we can get the angular speed omega, and both the stars will move with the same omega. Hence, both the stars will have the same time period, that I am denoting it with t dash. After putting the value of omega, I will get the t dash as this expression, right? Now we want to compare this value of time period with the time period of earth and sun system, right? It is given in the question that this t dash is basically equal to some quantity multiplied by the earth and sun time period. So I have placed the expression for t dash and capital T, and I have calculated the value of n, that is equal to 9, and for this particular question I can say that value of n equal to 9 will be my answer for this question. So students, moving on to the final question of this paper 2, this is a question from the chapter Modern Physics. Here the photoelectric effect is discussed basically. Alright, so this question says that we have three different metal plates for which the work function is different, their kinetic energy is also different. Okay, so the best representation that we can do over here is that these are the three plates and their values of work function is also written over here. Okay, so for the first two plates, the incident energy I is same, but for the last plate, the incident energy I is different, so I am representing it with I dash. Okay, for the first plate, the kinetic energy is 2E, and for the second and the third plate, the kinetic energy is same, capital E. Alright, so very basic equation we have written here, that the Kmax is equal to the incident energy minus the work function. Same equation I have written 3 times for 3 different plates. Alright, so if I solve the first two equations, I will get the value of this capital E as 0.5 volt, and in the final equation, if I substitute this value of E, I will get the value of this I dash, which is 6 electron volt, and this is the value I dash which I need to calculate in my final answer. So this is gonna be 6 electron volt. 6 will be the correct answer for this question. So student, this was the discussion of paper 2, alright, and this entire paper 1 and paper 2 was not at a very difficult level. It was a moderate level, and all the concepts that we have discussed in the classrooms also, the same type of concepts were asked in these two papers. Okay, so what is the mantra to succeed in such type of paper? Always stick to your concepts. Okay, so keep on hard working, guys. Alright, and this will be beneficial for your future exams also. Thank you.